UFOs exist. What is not certain is what they are. The Mutual UFO Network, or MUFON, watches the skies, investigating sightings soon after they occur. Their investigators use the tools of science, psychology, and law enforcement to get as close to the truth as the truth will allow. Unidentified flying objects definitely exist. Only their identity remains a mystery. The mystery of UFOs over Earth.
You know, when they talk about Galileo, he'd have his telescope and he'd invite people from the scientific community to come and look in the eyepiece. They didn't believe and they wouldn't look in. And what we're facing with here is this is out there, and some of us are looking in the telescope and trying to figure out what's going on out there. I'm MUFON's chief investigator for the states of North Carolina and Virginia. I essentially work as a volunteer and volunteer my time. I went to Fayetteville, North Carolina, and I met with Chris Bledsoe, and I videotaped what he was telling me.
I know what I saw. There's no skeptic in the world. They can say what they want sitting behind a desk, but they won't hear.
When I interviewed Chris, he described lights in the sky at 3 different locations.
As you get into the UFO investigations, you'll find people always are describing things they can't find words for. So I'm working more like a police sketch artist. We want to make this look as close to the actual event. This is the location along the Cape Fear River where 5 guys get together one night to do a little evening fishing.
We were all fishing right in this very spot.
Chris leaves his friends. He walks up to this spot on the road, and this is where he has his first encounter.
Looking this way, you see the trees in front. See where it drops off, that little hut down there?
Yeah.
That's where I was standing. And there's these 2 orange balls, huge, and they were motionless, sitting side by side.
Okay, so this is about the size it would have been over that tree right there.
But what alerted me, a third one came in the blink of an eye. And I turned around in a pretty good clip, not running, but a good paced walk back to the river.
Now, this is the point of the river. Chris races back to tell his friends what he's seen. They all look up in the sky. Everybody sees these 3 lights descending rapidly.
We're all looking at the sky when these 3 big white balls that looked like stars converged and landed on the other side of the river. And they were really close. They weren't but 100 yards, maybe 150 yards on the other side of the river.
The guys drop their fishing poles right where they're standing, and they head for the truck. So the guys are in the truck, they're racing out of there, they get to the end of the road, they stop the truck, they look up, and everybody sees something strange floating in the sky. But the story doesn't end there. Chris goes home, and the barking dogs lead him outside to his backyard, and that's where the story gets really weird.
MUFON's a nonprofit scientific research organization. We have about 800 field investigators, and we get a lot of cases that come our way that we assign to local investigators, but when a real good case like this one comes along, I like to go on it personally.
Tell me what happened. You came back from your walk, you came down here, the guys are fishing down here, right?
They're sitting right here, right on this bottom area.
Chris appears to be a pretty respected member of the community. He's a commercial pilot. He was a very successful builder, had a good business. He's got a great family, raised 4 children, and for all intents and purposes seems to be a pretty stand-up guy. What do you think the altitude was when they came down? You said when they came down and then slowed down like...
I'd say 500-600 feet when they slowed down, but they were coming down at a speed unbelievable. It looked like a star from a million miles away, and then it just, boom, didn't stop, but it looked like a cushion of something caught it. And then they come down about this speed, just gently.
I have to say that Chris Sr. just came across so well. And his demeanor and his body language and just his very simple talk. And he was obviously a very intelligent man, but at the same time a very simple man. And I just got the sense that there was an element of truth here.
And was that the end of it?
It was the end until I got home. And then it started again at the house.
What happened at the house?
That's when my dogs went nuts, and I ran out to see what was bothering them. My Chesapeake took off in the woods. I ran around to cut them off, whatever it was, and that's when this entity is standing 3 or 5 feet away from me. So it went on a long time. I mean, it was a hectic night. It was totally something I'll never forget. It haunts me. My Chesapeake runs right to about right here and stops. I wasn't even thinking an entity or nothing like that. I'm thinking some sort of animal. All these dogs are facing this way. The Chesapeake's facing this way, and her hair is standing up from the back of her head to her rear end. I look back this way, and right there, it was just standing there. Right on that little rise, but if I reached my hand out and leaned over, I could touch it. And it would have been right about, yes sir, right there.
No more than 3 or 4 feet away.
That's the max. And he was no higher than, say, this high up on your arm. It didn't move, it didn't blink, it had red eyes, but it was glowing. I mean, look at the chill bumps. See that? You can't fake that, guys.
As far as looking at it, it was just stoic. It was glowing, there. But there was no nose twitching, no muscle movement, just like a statue would be looking at.
It looked like if you dipped a person in glass and it molded to their body, you could see through the glass inside. That's what it looked like. And it looked proportionately like a child, a little person.
These creatures did not look like the standard close encounters aliens that we have kind of grown up to know and love, dipped in glass and a very shiny surface that apparently went from literally, fingertip to head and everything else.
For a second, I was frightened, and I stood there and I said, okay, I'm a big guy. If you want me, you got me. You got me cornered. I have nowhere to go.
This was an important part of this investigation for us because I think most people are going to look at what his reaction was and they're going to believe him.
Were you moving around?
I won't move in a bit. I was frozen, and I was looking at it, and it was looking at me, and I was thinking real fast, if it's going to get me, it's going to get me. And I just kind of calmed down and relaxed. And, I felt at peace at that moment.
Where's the dog at this point?
It was coming straight to it. Came right through here. When it got to right in there, the whole thing disappeared.
Chris, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you mind if we just take a minute to discuss and evaluate?
What do you think, man? I don't know.
Undescribable. Incredible.
We get a lot of stories. We get a lot of cases that involve entities, humanoids, but I've never seen a case before where the entity was just 4 feet away from you. To me, that's pretty amazing.
Didn't notice any arm movement. I mean, it's basically this deal, looking right at him.
Robotic creature standing there that just vanished in thin air.
1 second was there, the next second was gone.
Yeah. As far as his description, it's staying consistent with his original submission that he made to MUFON.
I'm still processing. I don't know what to think right now.
If he was hoaxing this, if he was trying to scam it, why wouldn't he just use the description everybody else uses?
This is a very interesting case, but at the same time it's a very tough one because there's no physical evidence and we have to rely on strictly witness testimony. So far we've only been able to interview Chris, but there were 4 other people involved, and I'd really like to see what they have to say about this.
As far as I know, we're getting invaded by UFOs.
I remember being one on the right, one in the middle, and one toward the left.
I'm thinking, boy, this is really sizing up to be a whopper.
Like an invasion, you know what I'm saying? That's what we were thinking in our mind.
An estimated 10,000 UFO sightings are reported each year. MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, chronicles these sightings, but only investigates those they consider credible. The following is an account of one such investigation.
Chris Bledsoe alleged that he had 3 separate UFO sightings and also had an alien encounter, but he was not the only witness that night.
Okay. Just try to remember back and tell me about what happened that night.
It was really dark out, and I happened to be looking down that way. And I saw these 2 orbs, about this big, about waist high off the ground, just floating. So all I could see was these two bright red orbs side by side.
Where were they when you first saw them?
Down the path there, coming down the road.
Okay.
And
so they're coming down that road and coming this way, or what?
Yeah, really slowly.
So you saw the orbs go into that area?
Go into the woods on the left side in front of near the river. And then next thing you know, I didn't see any more orbs. I just saw these little creatures come walking out the woods.
We interviewed Chris Jr. to see if he could corroborate any of his father's story. But it turns out he wasn't at the riverbank. He was actually up the riverbank having his own encounter. You don't have to go all the way in there, but just kind of indicate where you were.
Back here.
Try to describe them a little bit.
And it was really dark. It just looked like little creatures, little skinny. And I could see their body, but not like what they were wearing.
Junior was a little bit different. If there could be one word I could use to describe Chris Jr., that would be this overwhelming sense of angst. He seemed to be having some troubles, a lot of internal battles.
Was the moon up? Was there?
Yeah, there was a moon, 20 stars.
We weren't sure whether this really happened to him or he was making some of this up to try to corroborate his dad's story. So we think it's really important for us to bring in these other three witnesses who were there and find out what they saw.
When then Chris comes up.
It was a bit of a challenge, but we were able to track down the other three men and videotape what they had to say about the event.
You could see what looked like bright stars. They were scattered across the tree line. And you could just see them descending slowly.
And it just like dropping, like I said, it looked like a piece of hot steel or something,
They were orangish, and then you could see separate other colors.
It was orange and maybe yellow.
I remember being one on the right, one in the middle, and one toward the left.
From that tree to this tree, they were right there. You could see them just perfect right there.
That's when it freaked me out. Now, so I was like, hey guys, look, y'all see them? Y'all see these?
I got so paranoid I opened my pocket knife.
And that's when the panic set in, There wasn't nothing normal about it.
What if someone was to say, look, all you guys saw was some flares?
I'd call them a lie.
Have you seen flares before?
Yeah.
Any way they could have been flares, just military flares?
Nah.
Have you seen flares?
We stood there for 5 or 10 minutes looking at them.
Right.
Ain't no flare gonna stand up there that long.
Right.
As I'm hearing these guys tell me their story, although there's some minor discrepancies here, basically everybody's pretty much telling us the same thing, and they're pretty much corroborating each other's stories.
There wasn't no sound. I mean, it was dead still that night.
No sound whatsoever.
Did you hear any other noise? Normal noises, birds,
Nothing.
animals?
It was quiet. It was quiet. It was just, you could have heard a rat piss on a piece of cotton. That's how quiet it was.
One of the big discrepancies was the description of the large light that they saw at the top of the hill. 3 of them saw this big ball of light.
When we come out of here, before we left, there was a light right yonder. It was a big light, right there in that field there.
But Chris Sr. had this very vivid description of what the craft looked like. And so we're not sure what to make of that.
Somewhere between there and the highway was the spiked object that I described.
It was just another big glowing light.
It was like a...
But then, like I said, it just kind of just...
Hold your hand up like that, kind of try to remember it.
Well, from the distance, I can put my hand around it like that, maybe.
If you look at the tree and the pole, it would have been, the nose of it would have been at the pole, and the rear end of it would have been past the tree. See the horse standing there?
Right.
That would have been about the back of it, or a little further behind him, and the front of it would have been along this pole over here. It was a good 40 feet.
The other major discrepancy we saw in the stories was this whole issue of missing time, where Chris Sr. thought he was gone for maximum 20-30 minutes from the riverbank, but his companion said he had been gone for hours, and in fact they went to go look for him.
Okay, Chris, now, you said it took you 20 minutes to get up here and back down again.
And yes, sir.
Okay, now, why did the other guys think it took longer than that?
I had been gone a long time.
I remember that night that somebody had went looking for him in the truck. The truck was parked right there. When it got dark, we kind of started wondering where Chris had got to.
It was just me and Gene down there. Donnie went up the hill to get Chris, so he didn't have to walk back or whatever. Went around there, hey, where you at?
All of them said they drove up to the road at the end and drove back. And I know they left because they said they did, and the truck was moved.
At some point, those guys said that they came up the road and went up there, turned around, and went back. You're standing here the whole time. How could they get past you without you seeing them and them not seeing you?
There's no way.
Did anybody tell you how much time had passed?
3 or 4 hours.
They thought you were gone for 3 or 4 hours.
Yes, sir.
In a case like this where there's time missing, he tells me he can't remember. He tries to remember, he thinks about it, he gets these severe smashing headaches, and he can't remember what happened up there.
So at the time, you didn't think it was strange that when you got here, it was just getting dark, and when you got back, it was very dark. That didn't strike you as strange or odd?
I have a missing spot in my brain, and I've told Richard this time and again. I have a wall. I want to know what happened there. I'm lost for time at that point.
I feel for him. I feel sorry for him because I can see that he's really struggling with something. But I know that's something that we probably could explore with some psychological help. Now that we've finished interviewing the other witnesses, and we've pretty much gone as far as we can with them, we want to go back and focus on Chris Bledsoe because that's where we think we're going to find our answers. In cases like this where there's potential for having close encounters, what we found is that the use of regression hypnosis can sometimes help us to uncover missing memories.
It's like we're in the sky.
Oh, here we go.
Scared.
We've definitely gone through the looking glass today, guys.
The rear end of it would have been past.
Chris Sr. just seems to be really well known within that community. He's a prominent businessman, makes him a credible witness. We're not sure if what happened to Chris Bledsoe is real or fantasy, but we're hoping that regression hypnosis will provide that answer.
When you do the regression hypnosis, you basically put the client in a state of unconsciousness. Sometimes they refer to it as putting them in a trance. And the psychologist can basically talk to the individual and take the information off their subconscious mind.
You're in control here. All I'll be doing is just helping you to get focused.
Dr. Michael O'Connell is a Harvard-trained psychologist. He's got 15 years experience, and he's probably done a regression hypnosis on somewhere around 250 individuals, and we are very lucky to have him.
Yes. You're okay. You're okay.
The regression hypnosis took place on July 14th, 2008, and we videotaped it.
Where are we going? I tried to hide, but couldn't. They're looking at me. There's 4 of them. They're so tall, skinny.
How tall are they?
Real tall. 7 foot or better. They're not human. They're not human.
4 of them.
Uh-huh. I just want to go home. Let me go. I want to see my son.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want?
Wherever he was when they were doing this explains why. I mean, that would explain why when they come up the hill looking for him, he wasn't there.
What does the room look like?
It's round. It's dark in areas, but I can see lights, controls. I can feel no movement, none.
Okay, Michael, go ahead, push it to the limit.
Are they telling you why you were chosen?
Uh-huh.
What reason was that?
They're my guardians.
Looking after you?
Uh-huh.
Your well-being?
Uh-huh. Every time I get sad, they're here. I know I've been sad. Is that why you come? Uh-huh.
Are they the same ones that you saw in your backyard later?
That's their children.
Your children?
Uh-huh. They let them out to play.
In your backyard?
This is just your routine, everyday stuff here, right?
20 years in the business.
Have they been inside your home?
Yeah.
We've definitely gone through the looking glass today, guys. I've seen the tapes before, but this is one of the best ones I've ever seen.
All the way up? You can feel it in your butt, in your back?
So what do you think?
Oh.
Was abducted.
A lot of similarities. Unfortunately, you're not unique in this world.
Everything we were trying to figure out, you pretty much told us.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did real good.
Wow.
You did good. I'll show it to you.
What we're watching here with Chris is very consistent with the typical abduction scenario. It obviously accounts for the missing time.
Can I come back?
It also accounts for the fact that someone got in the truck, drove up the hill to where he was, and he wasn't there.
You said at one point, you said something about the little ones, and you said they put them out, let them out to play or something like that.
Yeah,
said, oh, they would just let them out to play.
He said, in your backyard. Play in your backyard.
This has been one hell of a week. It's been a roller coaster of emotions. So right now I think we're going to be mostly in analysis mode and trying to figure out where we're going to take the investigation next.
And when I came home to tell everybody, I was rejected like I was completely nuts.
If you'd come back and said this person's like totally psychotic, it would have made this real easy for us.
All MUFON investigators are volunteers. Their full-time occupations range from police detectives to computer graphic designers to aeronautical engineers. They bring their skills to each investigation.
Let me go. I want to see my son.
In an effort to reconnect Chris with his experience, we created an animation to show him. And we're hoping with his feedback, we can know whether we're accurate or not.
Here's the first one. What we're looking at here would be when you guys were at the riverbank and you saw the lights come over. How's that look?
It's pretty close. The third orb should be where the other one is on the left.
You want me to back this up a little bit,
No,
Chris?
stop it right there. When I first came up the road, I was looking that way. It was about this amount of light. There was one here, more like this high. And this one that was stationary was here. And then one came from here in a blink of an eye and stopped just above those trees right there.
The fact that Chris was able to point out the discrepancies in the animation and how they could be fixed lends more credibility to his testimony.
The way he's got it's pretty close. Right there. See that spike? Is that sticking out on the front?
He does have
Do away with those. I mean, a few changes and it'll be...
Well, we're going to go back and we'll get it fixed so it's right like you showed us.
Now that we have Chris's feedback, we can finalize the animation.
He has this very vivid image of what he saw, starting with him up at the top of the hill and seeing these orbs coming over the field, and then going back down to the riverbank and witnessing these lights coming over with the other folks there that were fishing with him. And then all of them getting back in the truck and going to the top of the hill again and seeing the strange spike craft. And then racing home from there and having this alien encounter.
It changed everybody in our house. For the first time in our life, we were not open. We avoided the dinner table together. I've been ashamed to share anything with anybody, and I have neglected some family members, avoided them intentionally. It's been emotional, it's been stressful, it's been horrifying.
In fact, can I tell you this? Our marriage and our family was on the verge of splitting up over this thing.
So it's been tough, but it's not a train wreck yet.
The dramatic changes in their behavior and the stressors that it caused in their family life is a major confirmation that something went on.
Chris had more to lose than to gain by making up the story. So the question is, did he really see UFOs and was he abducted? Or is this all in his head? Debbie, James Carrion.
Hi, James.
It's a pleasure to meet you. you're actually going to be able to come up with a diagnosis, whether there's any elements of fantasy proneness, any red flags you're looking for in terms of could it be a hoax?
I'm going to do an in-depth interview with him and try to get as much information as I can.
Personality disorders I would be looking for in a case like this would be something like narcissistic personality disorder, or their proneness to fantasy, or if they have any sociopathic tendencies.
Debbie, Spencer?
Hi.
Debbie, Chris,
Hi.
Lisa.
Nice to meet you.
This is Chris's wife, Vaughn.
How you doing? Hi, Vaughn. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
What I was really looking for was whether he showed any indications of these personality disorders that would really tell me that there's a hoax going on here.
Debbie's a psychiatric social worker. She's a professor, a college professor in Maryland. Just tell her, just be open, tell her what you're thinking, and I think everything will be fine. Okay?
Make yourself at home.
Thanks. First test is a skid. You just do a general interview. Are people anxious? Are they depressed? From that very structured interview, you piece together a diagnosis. And the other test is the MMPI-2, and that is personality inventory. What are his general features, how he portrays himself in the world, how he reacts in different situations. So we thought those two would be the best tests to give. So has there ever been a period of time when you felt deeply depressed?
2001, during election times, I lost $2 million cash dollars because I had 27 houses that sat on the market a year and a half. It caused a lot of depression, but I never told my family the stress that I was under because I sheltered them. Well, it made my condition very rough.
And you always have a sense of who you are? Yeah, okay. So you don't lose touch with that. About that night and what happened, would you describe that as a trauma?
Oh, it was definitely traumatic. Yes, ma'am. It's very painful to think about it. And when I came home to tell everybody, I was rejected like I was completely nuts.
Yeah, you have a lot of pain about that. Yeah. There's nothing to indicate that in my conversation today with Chris that he's experiencing any break with reality. And certainly was not indicated in the skid interview that Chris Sr. is psychotic. On the other hand, he sort of has a proneness to unusual ideas and beliefs, which probably made him more susceptible, but certainly did not create any kind of mental illness.
Debbie administered a second test, the MMPI-2, the Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory Test. And the test shows he's in his right mind.
The MMPI basically said that he is vulnerable, and being vulnerable, he could have a certain level of psychotic or disturbed thinking, but that really seems unlikely, and actually his personality profile doesn't indicate that he's sort of prone to, making up lies or conspiring or things like that.
If you'd come back and said this person's like totally psychotic, and it would have made this real easy for us.
And that never came up. Yeah.
I was pretty relieved that I didn't see any of the major personality disorders there. So I'm pretty convinced that this is not something that was hoaxed.
Come on, talk for me. Wish you would.
It simply doesn't make any sense whatsoever that he would lie about it, that he would collude with others to lie about it, that he would conspire with anyone. You risk more coming forward with a story like this than you would ever gain. But the bottom line is, it's Chris Sr.'s word about whether he saw this creature. And that's why we have to do the polygraph.
Did you make up any of the information regarding the entity you reported seeing on the night in question?
No. How would you summarize the test?
It looked like stars. I mean, stars in our eyes.
Like an invasion, you know what I'm saying? That's what we were thinking in our mind.
What does the room look like?
Lights. Controls.
Because this case is based on anecdotal testimony, we decided to use the polygraph to see if Chris is telling us the truth.
Hey, Yvonne.
Hey, Steve.
Hey, Chris.
Hey, Steve. Good to see you, my
Good to
friend.
see you.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
As far as polygraph is concerned, you're either telling the truth or you're not telling the truth.
A lie is a lie is a lie, I suppose.
That's it.
Polygraph is really only as good as the operator's interpretation. We were lucky to get Bob Durdak. He's retired from the FBI. He was in charge of the North Carolina Bureau's polygraph unit, and he's very respected in his field.
I tell them it's a pure of heart test. If you feel good in your heart, you're being honest, you're going to do fine. If you don't,
your body shows it and you don't do so good. It usually pretty much plays out that way. Hello there. Hello.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Steve McGee, MUFON.
Steve, Bob Durdak, how are you?
Chris Blitzen.
Chris, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you.
All right. Steve, thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Chris is having no qualms about doing a polygraph. In fact, in the original report, he said he would take one. So we're going into this polygraph exam feeling very confident that he's going to do well.
The real lie detector in this whole equation is you, because you're the only one that knows the truth, and you're telling this instrument here what's going on inside your body, and that's what we're using to determine whether you're being truthful or not. If you will pull this around your lower stomach and just hold it right in the middle and kind of lean forward a little bit, I'm going to pull this around behind you.
For months, I was scared to say anything for ridicule. I decided I had to get it off my chest or it's going to drive me insane. And the world needs to know it's real. It is real.
I'm thinking, if he comes out and passes, this is going to make this real easy. And it's going to shorten our time here.
That's stuff for anxiety anyhow. That's
Well, just try to be as relaxed as you can. Okay, ready to go?
Yes, sir.
Test is now beginning. Is your first name Christopher?
Yes.
Is there anything in your background that would cast doubt on your honesty or integrity?
No.
Did you make up any of the information concerning what you saw in the sky on the night in question?
No.
Have you conspired with anyone to provide false information regarding what happened on the night in question?
No.
Did you make up any of the information regarding the entity you reported seeing on the night in question?
No.
How would you summarize the test?
Well, I'd say he failed the test. I'm going to tell you that his deceptive responses were focused around things that he actually saw that night.
He wasn't being truthful about the entity.
I don't think so.
What do you think he was being truthful about?
I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, it's going to be a speculation no matter what I say. Is everything he said a lie? You can't glean that just from the polygraph. You can glean that from the investigation, the information you collect, and everything should fit at some point. Did you make up any of the information concerning what you saw in the sky on the night in question?
How did he score there?
Well, if you just took the numerical score, he would have been inconclusive on that. The one he had deceptive responses to was the entity, seeing the entity. You know, he kept saying, I'm not sure myself when I think about it if I really saw it or not, but I know I did.
He didn't come right out and tell us everything was a lie, but basically the part about the entity reflected negatively in the polygraph.
I ended up doing 2 series.
So even though I may feel disappointed, in the back of my mind, I'm saying reserve judgment. Reserve judgment. So you have to weigh all that evidence, and it really comes down to who do you believe?
Essentially, it was negative. Basically, the operator's telling us that he wasn't being honest. He was neutral on the orange orbs, and he was neutral on the lights in the skies. I think we're all a little disappointed. Honestly, the relationship I've developed with Chris, I really felt like I owed it to him to sit down and talk to him about it.
This was going to be his chance to either confirm or deny that he still was going to stick to his guns, or he was going to finally come out and admit that, no, guys, all right, you got me.
We wanted to talk to you and get your reaction.
Okay.
Because I was basically going to hit him right between the eyes with it and see what he says.
Hopefully, he'll benefit somehow, some way.
MUFON annually investigates an average of 5,000 reported UFO sightings. Approximately 85% are dismissed as either misidentification of natural phenomenon, man-made activity, or deliberate hoax. 15% remain unexplained.
We were really concerned and wanted to talk to you and get your reaction.
Okay.
It was an uncomfortable time because I was basically going to hit him right between the eyes with it and see what he says. The question about the entity is where the concern came in.
Okay.
And basically the result on as far as the entity was concerned was negative.
Okay.
Now I'm trying to help you figure this all out. It was tense. Tell me what you think about it. It was uncomfortable for us because we knew it would make him uncomfortable. We really needed to know what he was going to say.
I know my mind, remember me telling you there's like 2 parts of me? There's an inner part that says this was there, and there's an outer part that says maybe, maybe not, but I know what I saw. and I have nightmares with it. It never leaves my mind, and it was there. I'd stake my life on it.
It was tough. It was tough not to believe him. He was so sincere and so strong about what he was saying.
Well, I know what I saw. There is no doubt in my mind what I saw. Whatever this machine says, I don't know, and don't care. But I know what I saw. And I go over and over in my mind because it's hard to believe yourself.
He stuck to his guns. He was very sincere. So in my mind, the story still goes. I mean, the story still seems credible. After all this, Chris still insists that he saw 3 UFOs and he had an alien encounter on January 8th, 2007. Now that the animation has given us this very vivid description of the object, we can check our archives to see if somebody else had a similar sighting. In cases like this, you really just have to pull all the stops and make sure you're covering all your bases. Gathering corroborative information from law enforcement, from the local newspapers and media to see who else may have reported something similar.
Yes, I'm with MUFON. I'm a field investigator, and I was wondering if you could check your newspaper archives for an unusual sighting January 8th of 2007.
Okay, when I search after January 1st of 2007, I don't see any local stories.
We contacted the local military installations, the airports, trying to find somebody else who may have reported this or may have seen things, and we came up with nothing.
As I scroll down on our case management system, the time frame of the Bledsoe sighting, as I look here, we've got a submission on January the 9th, 2007.
One of the interesting aspects about the Bledsoe case is Chris Sr.'s description of the craft at the top of the hill. What struck me as I'm going back through the MUFON archives is we found a similar case from 2001 up in Wisconsin where the craft that was seen there was almost identical to what Chris was describing, the whole egg shape and the protrusions. In fact, when I put them side by side, I was amazed at how similar they were.
Basically describes the same thing as the witnesses in the case that we're working on right now.
To have 2 cases in different parts of the country, different time frames, where both craft are so similar is just amazing. Now that we have this other sighting from Wisconsin, the question is this coincidence? Is it a collective fantasy? Or are people really witnessing the same object in different states? Based on the year differences, I would have to say they're seeing the same object.
So we do crawl over one of those guys? Let's talk about closure on something like this. The reality is that when you work on a case like this, you never get a cut and dry solution. We have a lot of evidence, a lot of information, a lot of testimony, and we'll never know for sure exactly what happened. So it's frustrating to us that we haven't been able to gather the necessary data we want to prove that something really happened. But at the same time, we know this is happening, we know that people are experiencing this, and we really would be remiss if we didn't investigate it. We can't simply ignore it. These are things that are happening to people every day, and they're having these experiences, so we want to be there to be able to not only try to figure out what's going on, but try to secure some sort of proof that this is a reality.
It's all right. Come on out here. What do you think?
I don't know what to think.
You don't?
Chris Jr. and Chris Sr. had a very reality-altering event. I think this case shows that we're dealing with a real phenomena here. And it's important for folks to know this is not science fiction. This is science fact. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's been tough, but it all come out good.
All right, bud. I'll see you later.
Thank you, Richard.
See you later, man. Later, buddy.
Thank you.
It's worse if you're quiet about it. It'll never leave what I saw, and one day, everybody will know the truth.